Okay, picture this. You're maybe, I don't know, in a high-rise in Mumbai, swirling a nice single malt,
Hmm.
and at the exact same time, someone's driving down the M25, maybe in a new British SUV that just landed.
Right. Two very different scenes.
Totally.
Hmm.
But what connects them? Well, essentially, it's a handshake
Uh,
to everyone. The free trade agreement between India and the UK signed just yesterday, May 6th, 2025.
and this isn't just, some minor footnote in the business pages. We're talking about the fifth and sixth biggest economies globally.
Exactly.
So this pact, it's potentially transformative for how they trade with each other. A really big deal.
It really is. And getting here, well, that was quite the journey, wasn't it? It felt like a saga sometimes.
It definitely had its twists and turns, political shifts, delays, like a proper drama.
Yeah, like trying to plan a massive event during, I don't know, constant disruptions. But the ink's dry now. Feels like a new beginning.
And for you listening, trying to get your head around these big global shifts, that's what we want to do today. Cut through the jargon, the dense economic speak.
Let's talk real impacts. What does this actually mean for stuff you might buy, for jobs, for the bigger picture?
That's the plan. Give you a clear, engaging look at this landmark deal and what ripples it might create.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Where does this all start? The talks kicked off back in, what, early 2022?
January 2022, yeah. And there was a real buzz then, a lot of optimism.
Like a first date between economies, maybe? Seeing the potential?
That's a good way to put it. A strong belief that, working closer together economically could unlock massive benefits for both sides.
But then, things got complicated, as they often do.
Well, yeah, politics happen. Especially in the UK, it felt like a revolving door situation.
You can say that again. 4 prime ministers in a fairly short
Mhm.
span. That's a lot of change when you're trying to negotiate something this complex.
And you had major elections, too. Modi winning his third term in India, Keir Starmer and Labour coming in over in the UK.
Trying to keep these delicate talks on track through all that political turbulence. Wow. Must have been challenging.
Extremely. Because these deals need focus, they need political capital. Transitions like those inevitably mean pauses, reassessments.
It says something that they kept it going, though.
Yeah.
Shows there was real commitment underneath it all.
Definitely. And then earlier this year, around February 2025, you sensed a shift, didn't you? Things seemed to speed up again.
Yeah, a renewed push. Reports of negotiators pulling all-nighters, really hammering out the details.
Burning the midnight oil, as they say.
Right, until finally May 6th. The deal is done. Diplomatic high fives all around.
And, there might have been some external nudges, too, that final push.
Oh.
Like what? Well, consider the noises coming from the U.S., the possibility of, shall we say, a more protectionist stance, higher tariffs maybe.
The Trump factor potentially looming again.
It could have acted as a catalyst, couldn't it? A reason for India and the UK to say, okay, let's lock this down. Let's build our own trade shelter together.
Interesting angle. Like building a buffer against potential storms elsewhere. Okay, so the deal's real. Let's unpack it. What are the key ingredients?
Well, fundamentally, it's about knocking down barriers, primarily tariffs, those taxes on imports, making it easier for businesses to operate in each other's markets.
And the headline grabber seems to be whiskey.
Absolutely. Scotch, gin. Entering India used to mean facing a massive 150% tariff.
Wow, 150%. That basically prices a lot of stuff out, doesn't it?
It makes it very difficult for UK distillers to compete, yeah. So the deal tackles that head on. Immediately, that 150 drops to 75%.
Okay, that's already a huge cut.
And then it phases down further, raking 40% over the next 10 years.
10 years to get to 40%. Still
Okay.
significant.
It really is. This could genuinely change what people drink, especially India's growing middle class. More affordable access to these spirits.
So maybe less chai and more cheers in some places? Or perhaps both.
Maybe. It'll be interesting to watch.
What about cars? That was another big talking point, right?
Yes, the automotive sector. India's market has been, well, quite protected historically.
Tariffs there too.
Generally, yes. So this FTA aims to lower those for UK manufacturers. Think Jaguar Land Rover, for example.
Easier for them to sell in India.
Exactly. And the flip side is, Indian giants like Tata Motors should find it easier to export vehicles to the UK.
So more choice on the roads in both countries, potentially.
That's the idea, hopefully without causing too much extra traffic.
We can hope. Okay, whiskey, cars, what else? Food, cosmetics.
Yeah, food products too. Expect an easier flow, maybe more British biscuits appearing on Indian shelves.
My personal favorite outcome.
And smoother access for things like Indian basmati rice into the UK. Plus, lower tariffs on UK cosmetics, medical goods going into India.
So you might start seeing more Made in Britain labels on everyday stuff there.
Potentially, yes. It widens the options.
And it's not just about physical things crossing borders, is it? I read something about making it easier for people to work between the two countries.
That's crucial. There's a social security treaty alongside the main FTA.
What does that do exactly?
It basically sorts out the admin around social security contributions and pensions. So if you move from India to the UK for work, or vice versa, you don't lose out or get tangled up in double payments.
Like a VIP pass for pensions, almost. Makes mobility much less daunting.
Exactly. It removes a major headache for workers and employers. It's really practical.
Okay. And investment. Are businesses being encouraged to set up shop or put money into each other's economies?
Well, they didn't finalize a full bilateral investment treaty, or BIT, with the FTA.
Okay.
But there's a strong commitment to get one done soon. A BIT provides that extra layer of legal protection for investment.
Makes companies feel more secure investing abroad.
Precisely. It's like fixing the potholes before you encourage more traffic, ensuring the legal road is smooth and predictable for investors.
Got it. So the big picture goal here is boost the economies, create jobs, maybe lower prices for consumers, all aiming towards, what, 2040?
That's the long-term vision, yes. Creating an environment where, that engineer in Bangalore finds a British car more affordable and the bartender in Birmingham pours a decent Indian whiskey without it costing the earth.
Right. Now, stepping back, how does this fit into the global picture? We mentioned the U.S. situation.
Yeah, that's a key part of the context. In a world where trade winds can shift, sometimes unpredictably.
Like building a lifeboat, maybe.
Or at least a very sturdy raft. It's India and the UK saying, okay, let's strengthen our connection regardless of what others might do.
And for India, this seems like part of a bigger strategy, doesn't it? They're not just focused on the UK.
Not at all. India's been on a bit of an FTA spree recently. They're actively negotiating with the EU, aiming for a deal by December this year.
December 2025 target for the EU deal.
Oh.
Wow, ambitious.
It is. And it signals a real shift, I think, moving away from maybe a more cautious, historically protectionist stance towards really embracing global trade.
Shedding that closed market reputation a bit.
Exactly. Showing they're open for business, ready to integrate more deeply.
And from the UK's perspective, post-Brexit, this must feel like a major win.
Oh, undoubtedly. It's probably their most significant trade deal signed since leaving the European Union.
A big demonstration of that independent deal-making capability they talked about.
Absolutely. And it's quite the dynamic, isn't it? That potential U.S. policy shifts might have actually helped push both India and the UK to get this particular deal over the line faster.
A bit of geopolitical jujitsu there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk numbers. How much trade actually happens between them now, and what's the target?
Right. So in the last fiscal year, 2023-24, total trade goods and services was around $21 billion.
Okay. How did that break down?
India exported about $11.8 billion worth, mainly things like textiles, gems, machinery. The UK sent about $9.2 billion the other way, machinery, chemicals, and yes, whiskey again.
Whiskey keeps popping up.
It's a significant UK export. Plus, you've got about $10 billion in services trade on top of that.
So, a decent amount already. What's the goal with the FTA?
The ambition is big. They're aiming to boost that total trade figure by an extra $25.5 billion a year by 2040.
25.5 billion pounds sterling. That's a lot.
It is. To give you some scale, that's roughly the size of the entire GDP of some smaller countries.
Or, as you mentioned, the budget for a few Bollywood blockbusters.
Indeed. It shows the scale of the economic impact they're hoping for.
So, where will that growth come from? Specific sectors?
Well, the thinking is India could see big gains in textiles, agriculture, maybe autos. For the UK, it's definitely whiskey, cars again, but also things like biscuits, financial services perhaps.
And beyond just the UK and India, does this deal send ripples elsewhere?
I think so. It sets a kind of precedent for India's future deals. And for the UK, it's a working example of their post-Brexit trade model.
But we need to be realistic, right? This isn't going to solve world hunger or fix Delhi's smog.
No, absolutely not. It's about making trade smoother, creating opportunities, important but not a magic wand.
Now, deals like this are never easy. There must have been some serious sticking points during the talks.
Oh, definitely. Compromise is the name of the game. Visas and migration were always going to be tricky.
How so?
India generally pushes for easier access for its professionals to work abroad, including the UK. But the UK, especially post-Brexit, has its own political sensitivities around immigration levels.
So they had to find a middle ground.
Exactly. They reached a compromise, but it's likely an area that will need ongoing discussion and management.
What else was tough? Agriculture?
Yeah, that's always sensitive in trade talks. The UK wanted better access for its farm products, but that naturally raises concerns for Indian farmers about facing more competition.
Protecting domestic industries versus cheaper imports the classic trade-off.
It is. And then there are newer issues, like carbon taxes. The UK is planning a carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM.
Right, taxing imports based on their carbon footprint.
Yeah. And India was reportedly asking for an exemption or special consideration. That's still likely under discussion, showing how trade and climate policy are getting intertwined.
Sign the whiskey wars, as you call them, balancing interests there.
Precisely. Cutting India's famously high tariffs while also considering the impact on India's own large domestic liquor industry. That phased reduction down to 40% is the result of that negotiation.
It really sounds like cooking a complex biryani, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You need all the right ingredients in the right amounts, carefully balanced.
That's a perfect analogy. And, this UK deal isn't happening in isolation for India. It's part of a much bigger push.
We touched on that. They've been busy signing deals lately.
Very busy. Since about 2014, they've really accelerated things. Deals done with Mauritius, the UAE, Australia, the EFTA bloc.
EFTA is Switzerland, Norway.
Iceland, Liechtenstein, yeah. And talks are ongoing, as we said, with the EU, but also New Zealand, Oman, Peru, Israel. The list goes on.
So what's driving this? Why the big FTA push now?
Well, partly it might be reacting to the choppiness in global trade generally, diversifying partners, securing access.
Hedging bets, maybe?
Could be part of it.
Yeah.
Also, India wants to boost its own exports, attract investment, and just generally assert itself as a major economic player on the world stage. They want to be seen as, a key hub in global commerce.
Kind of like positioning themselves as the must-have partner at the global trade party.
Something like that. And this UK deal is a very significant piece of that strategy.
Okay, looking ahead then, what happens next? How does this roll out?
It'll be phased. Businesses will need time to understand the new rules, the tariff changes, and adapt.
And for us as consumers, what might we notice?
Potentially cheaper British gin or whiskey over time, maybe more Indian-made cars becoming available in the UK or vice versa. Little shifts in availability and price.
And jobs. Is the expectation that this will create employment?
That's certainly the hope. Perhaps in manufacturing in India, maybe retail, logistics, services in the UK, specific sectors should benefit.
And, tongue-in-cheek perhaps, any chance of better curry in London?
Haha. Well, easier movement of people and goods could theoretically help. We live in hope.
We do. But seriously, the big question is, will it deliver on that huge $25.5 billion promise? Will it live up to the hype?
That's the multi-billion-pound question, isn't it? The potential is there, the framework is signed, but making it work, that takes ongoing effort.
Like trying to navigate a Mumbai local train at peak hour, the destination,
Yeah.
There might be obstacles.
Exactly. There are always unforeseen bumps in the road with these things, but the political will seems strong on both sides right now.
And we should probably acknowledge not everyone's celebrating, right? There will be concerns.
Absolutely crucial point. Indian farmers might worry about UK imports. Some UK workers might worry about competition from Indian goods or services.
Protectionist voices in both countries will be raising questions.
They will. And those perspectives are legitimate and part of the democratic debate around trade policy. Plus, there's that external risk we keep mentioning. What happens with U.S. trade policy could still throw a spanner in the works globally.
So it's complicated. Potential benefits, definite risks.
Like trying a new dish, maybe? You hope it's delicious. You know it might have ingredients you're unsure about, but you weigh the potential reward against the risk.
That feels like a good summary. Trade deals are rarely simple.
They really aren't. They involve calculated risks in the hope of significant gains.
Well, regardless of the complexities, this India-UK FTA, signed May 6, 2025, is undeniably a huge moment. A major step for two nations with such deep history and clearly big future plans together.
It really highlights just how dynamic global trade is right now, doesn't it? Everything feels interconnected, constantly shifting.
So for you listening, maybe next time you pick up a product or hear about economic news, just think about that web of agreements. The handshakes, the negotiations, the tariffs on whiskey or cars that operate often unseen but shape so much of our world. This deal is a really vivid example of that.
And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What's next? What other surprising partnerships or shifts might emerge as countries figure out how to navigate this changing global landscape?
Could this India-UK deal be some kind of template for others?
Possibly. Or maybe it just encourages other nations to forge their own unique paths. It definitely invites you to think about those ripple effects. Where might the next unexpected connection appear in this global economic story? Something to ponder.